gun culture in Montana, I think that's why a lot of people come here to live.
We pride ourselves in our independence.
I don't know for the rest of Montana, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty important to us because it's part of our heritage.
The majority of the people, that are buying guns are responsible people. The stigma comes from one individual that upsets the apple cart, so to speak.
At that moment, the teacher came up to the door, and I just grabbed the gun and aimed and shot.
Had the bullet hit me at any different angle, it probably would have killed me.
I live here, I own a house here, I think I have every right to care about the laws here.
The reason we don't have huge amounts of violent crimes and gangs and things like that is because we are a culture that is very well armed, and everybody knows that.
Ever since I saw the ultrasound when my wife was pregnant with him, I thought, wow, I'm going to have a little hunting partner.
The University of Montana School of Journalism is proud to present Guns in the Big Sky, Montana's Gun Culture.
This University of Montana Radio Television Department production is made possible with support from the Greater Montana Foundation, encouraging communications on issues, trends, and values of importance to Montanans, and by the University of Montana.
Montana has the reputation of being a gun-loving, regulation-hating state.
I like that myths about guns. There's a lot of those.
And what happens at a gun show is the center of the controversy.
I would say it's made up of a wonderful cross mix of honest people that are looking for something new to add to their collection.
The stock itself, this fits a 94.
It's like-minded people from every cross-section of society that you can come up with that share a common interest in firearms collecting or things to do with firearms.
61% of Montana homes have guns, and at shows like this, guns freely change hands.
If I was a gun, I never see it again.
You can make a wonderful collection out of machine guns, any type of gun. You can collect Derringers, you can collect, for the history of it. Lincoln was killed with a Derringer. That gun would bring, at auction today, it'd bring millions of dollars.
I'll sit there and I'll be pulling it back.
I personally like historical things, and it means more to me to have something that's historic and old than just something that's old.
One guy come by with a duffel bag full of them yesterday. He goes, I'm only paying $20 a piece for them.
I've seen guys walk through here today that are older than I am that I knew 20 or 30 years ago at these shows. I hope there's interest by younger people that, that all this stuff will go someplace at some point.
There are dozens of gun shows in Montana every year.
I have advertised for years, gun and antique show, and people will come in and say, well, where's the antiques? And I tell them there's one behind every table. Because our vendors, they're just getting older and older every year, and they're not being replaced by any new young vendors per se. So it's good to see our youth, and I welcome them.
Thomas Cragen is selling guns, soap, and bracelets at this Helena Gun Show. He says it's a family affair.
Firearms are a big part of our lives, so it's very important for us to have our children introduced to firearms. We purchased firearms at a pretty young age for our kids. My youngest child is a boy, and he's 9 months old. I've already purchased a firearm for him. Obviously, he's not shooting it a whole lot these days. But firearm prices are going through the roof, so we went ahead and purchased them. That way he'll have it when he gets older.
You're spitting all over yourself.
Montanans who buy a gun from a private party are not required to go through any kind of background check.
We have probably a little more freedom to do what we want here than they do in New York or New Jersey or maybe California.
It's that lack of regulation that earned Montana an F from the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. But that same freedom is what some people love about Montana.
Montana's gun culture is kind of a way of life out here. People have farms and ranches, and it's necessary to keep guns around. They're a very important part of everybody's lives.
Guns play a part in Dan Mogard's life, not for work, but for recreation.
I've never hunted, and I've never had to use a gun in self-defense. I usually just go out to the range and shoot at targets because I find the whole atmosphere of it fascinating, and I like the smell of gunpowder, too. So. Probably my favorite memory is when my parents and I went to a vacation in Rockbridge, Missouri when I was 7 years old. Just a few miles away from this place there was a skeet shooting range, which is, clay pigeon shooting, trap shooting, whatever you want to call it. And my dad had just bought this Beretta shotgun that was made in the 70s. So my dad, was up behind me helping me hold it. And he said, okay, well, keep your finger off the trigger, keep your hand solid, keep that buttstock in that pocket of your shoulder, and let me know when you're ready to fire. And so he let go of me, and then as soon as a round was chambered, I let go, and I was in awe. It was loud. The concussive blast was immediately evident. I had ear protection on and everything, but you could just feel it. But it's a really fond memory because it was the first thing that really showed me that this is really a significant part of our culture. It was powerful, it was loud, and the smell, the sight, the sound definitely left a lasting memory for me. I wouldn't feel that comfortable just going around saying I am an avid shooter, but not knowing anything about my guns, not knowing what the manufacturer is, not knowing the history of the gun, not knowing the history of the cartridge. I consider myself a source of information, for one thing, if I know more about my guns, but I feel more confident in my ability to handle guns if I know exactly what's going on. In the wildlife conservation view, people have the ability to experience nature for what it is and see a multitude of different landscapes. But from the hunting for survival's sake, in the modern perspective, people can actually go out, help with population control. While it is heavily regulated by Montana Fish and Wildlife and Game Association, I think it's just a great sport that people can be involved with, shooting for sustenance. And I think it's very important for people. I think it's important that Montanans be able to experience their environment for what it is and be able to take advantage of it.
David Stalling had that experience early in his life. Now he's passing it on to his son.
Wait, where are we going?
My son's 12 years old now. And that's the age I started shooting, when I was a Boy Scout at the age of 12 and went and shot at 22.
Okay, let's see if it fits you.
Stalling grew up in Connecticut, and guns have always been a part of his life.
As I grew older, I eventually got my own shotgun and did some pheasant hunting and bird hunting. And then I got a rifle and did some deer hunting. And then I joined the Marine Corps and saw some serious weapons after that.
David's son, Corey, is now shopping for his own gun.
My son has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is a genetic terminal disease for which there's currently no cure, and he's likely to end up in a wheelchair, and yet shooting is something he'll continue to be able to do with me and we can do together. Now you're ready. All right, now go ahead and eject the round. I prefer to get him a bolt action single shot as opposed to, say, a semi-automatic, because by shooting just one shot at a time and then having to open that bolt, put another bullet in, close the bolt, and shoot again, it teaches somebody to concentrate on each individual shot and to, get their sight alignment and sight picture and breath control and practice and develop good habits and good shooting skills before they move on to other types of guns. And then what we're going to do, we're going to make sure there's nobody else shooting.
Make sure there's
Put that up.
nobody else.
Nobody's here, so we're safe. And we're going to go see how you did. Let's go look at the target. Yeah, I want to teach my son to shoot and use and handle a gun safely. And if he decides he wants to hunt with me in the future, he'll be ready to go.
Can you show me how to do it? The sight in the right direction?
Like I said, I have no problem with gun ownership. I think safe, responsible shooting is a lot of fun and can be a great activity. Aim, squeeze, and shoot. If my son knows the safe and proper ways to use and handle a gun, I feel like there'll be less potential for accidents in the future. Say, for example, someday my son is at somebody else's house and some kid finds their parents' guns because they didn't lock them up. I want my son to be in a position where he could say, no, that's a very dangerous thing, put it away. And the best way to do that is to teach him to be, how serious guns are, and to teach him to be responsible, and teach him how to use and handle them safely. Shoot a shot. No, you never.
I'm giving it to you.
I know, well then go like that. Here, do it again. Thank you. That's good, you're learning. Okay. What?
Can I walk out with it like a soldier?
December 4th, 1986 was going to be a big day at Fergus High School in Lewistown, Montana.
Fergus High School was hosting the girls' state Class A basketball tournament. Now the high school was really pretty new. This was only our second year, our first full year in the school. And this was really the first major event that the school had hosted. The biggest job that I had was working a little bit with the tournament officials, that kind of thing, but I really was responsible for checking on the substitute teachers because so many of our staff were involved with working with the tournament, and so we had a lot of substitute teachers, probably at least a dozen substitute teachers in the building. That's a lot. That can be disruptive for classes, so I was several times during the day just kind of making the rounds, making sure everything was okay.
The day itself was strangely normal in some regards because I'd carried out my paper out that morning. You know, I delivered all my newspapers, did all my chores, and then I went to the school.
Christopher Hans was a 14-year-old freshman at Fergus High School.
I remember leaving class, going down to the locker, taking the gun out of my coat, knocked on the door. A student came to the door and said, "Aren't you supposed to be in this class?" And then she just walked away, and at that moment the teacher came up to the door, and I just grabbed the gun and aimed and shot.
And that shot was deadly, killing substitute teacher Henrietta Smith in front of a classroom full of students.
We heard the shot, and I thought we had cement floors at the time. And I remember thinking somebody had picked up a garbage can and like dropped it on the floor.
I ran up the stairs from the basement to the main level of the school and ran around the corner. It was the hallways are narrow.
And it's at that point that the vice principal, who had heard the shot, came running around the corner the same direction, and I just shot.
Went right through my body from one side to the other.
I remember him grunting loudly and smacking up against the wall and going down.
Had the bullet hit me at any different angle, had it been a quarter-inch higher, quarter-inch lower, anything different, it probably would have killed me.
And they say I took a second shot at him, which obviously I did, although I don't remember it to this day. I don't remember doing it.
I was down on my hands and knees, and he took aim for a second shot, and it was just kind of that type of an aim, and he was maybe from me to you 6 feet away, and he shot again.
I remember running down the stairs. There was a group of girls down below me who I think must have thought there was a prank going on or something, because they were all laughing, going, "What are you doing?" And then I kept running.
I think he just wanted to get out of there, get out of the building as fast as he could.
Finally, I stopped to walk for a few minutes. I was beside the creek. I could hear the creek. And then all of a sudden, what I could hear was sirens, lots and lots of sirens.
The national media brought Hans and Moffat together 6 years after the shooting.
At one point, basically surprised me by bringing John Moffat into the room. And that made it, that was the first time that I could really understand, you know, the impact that my actions had on people. Because his family thought he was going to die. His kids were having nightmares, for Christ's sakes, for years.
I was pretty much helpless on the ground and couldn't do anything to get away, and you know, he just aimed and took his time and took a shot, you know, and just fortunately missed. That is, whenever I thought about it afterwards, that was always the thing, the image that came to mind. That scared me more than I think anything with the, you know, the whole experience.
You know, of the things that I struggle with is how to live with myself, because as bad as he went through, you know, the teacher's dead, and I can't ever change that.
And even though I didn't know this at that time, of course, Mrs. Smith had been shot and killed in the French classroom, and of the, you know, the students in that classroom literally had to walk over her body on the floor to get out of the classroom. So I can't imagine the horror that those kids experienced that day. I just cannot imagine it.
I was so terrified. I still, to this day, I mean, this is 30 years later almost, I had a 7-month-old baby at the time. And I still, see, I get emotional just talking about it even now. I still remember thinking, I cannot die because I have a baby.
Hans was sentenced to 215 years at the Montana State Penitentiary. After serving 26 of those years, he was granted work release in 2013. 4 schools have witnessed gun violence in Montana: Fergus High School, Montana State University, Carroll College, and Margaret Leary Elementary in Butte. The Butte shooting killed the nephew of Montana Governor Steve Bullock. The woman to Bullock's right is Nancy DePastino.
It just affected me really deeply, and it's gotten a little bit easier to fall asleep at night lately, but it changed the way I look at kids.
Tell me if a big bear comes up behind me.
A mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in Newtown, Connecticut prompted DePastino to start the Montana chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America.
People ask me, like, you know, you're raising kids, you're photographing kids all the time, like, how do you deal with the emotions, the tantrums and all that stuff? And it's really different when it's not your child having, you know, a tantrum. You can have this a little bit of an emotional detachment from it and just be, you know, just try to help instead of getting stressed out about it. So it's a fun job.
Tell me if a big bear comes up behind me. Okay.
When you become a parent, you realize you're taking on this incredible responsibility, and your responsibility is to protect your children. And when you get to the point of parenthood where you're dropping your child off at school, in preschool or then in kindergarten, you're putting in an incredible faith in the people there to take care of your child.
I don't think we're gonna get. I'll take your watch.
You know, you always hear people talking about how hard it is to drop their kids off the first day of kindergarten or the first day of school. It's because you're putting so much faith in our community, basically, to take that responsibility for you for those, you know, 6 or so hours a day. So yeah, you really think about how safe that school is or how safe your community is when you're sending your kids out there. When I first started the chapter, I was like, you know, it is a little scary. Like, oh yeah, you're the only one who signed up in Montana so far, but yeah, look at all the people who have stepped up since then.
Nancy just contacted me. We're Facebook friends and neighbors, and I think we were seeing each other put posts on Facebook about just the depth of sadness about what happened in Sandy Hook, and she just emailed me and said, hey, do you want to help me out with this? And at the time, I was really looking for something to do.
Close to 200 volunteers have signed up with the chapter so far.
Moms, we have dads, we have grandparents, all kinds of walks of life, you know, business owners, retired people. It's great to have a diverse group because it shows how universal our message is. But yeah, all kinds of different people joining and wanting to make a difference.
But with approximately 1 million people in the state, Riza is less optimistic.
Sometimes I just get overwhelmed, like really, 200. We're not getting the word out, or people don't care, or they're afraid to speak up.
I think that it's hard for people to speak up in a state that's just been dubbed, you know, a gun-loving state. It's hard to stand up and say, I don't think that's a great idea. One, because your opposition has guns, we know that much, right? And so it's a little bit of an intimidating position to take because there aren't a lot of other people talking about it. But once you do, and once you start to talk to your friends and your neighbors about it, you start to realize you're really not the only one who would like some common sense gun laws. It's really a public health crisis that we don't treat as a public health crisis. We just ignore it and say, oh, we have a strong gun culture here in Montana. Well, that gun culture has its consequences.
The Montana Board of Crime Control reports 348 crimes committed with firearms in 2011. 10 of those ended in death. But most Montana firearms owners pride themselves on responsible gun ownership.
The vast majority of gun owners are it's a tool. It's an enjoyable shooting sport. It's a tool to use for hunting. I think it's a tradition. It's a responsibility. It's one of those things that people have grown up with and just never want to see go away.
Todd Kessner started the Western Heritage Project in 2008. It engages 12 to 19-year-olds in an accurate portrayal of the Old West.
Boy, when you're living it and you're wearing the clothes and you're firing the firearms from the period and you're learning about the people of that time period, it just really is a great way to teach a historical type of project through living history, and we found a lot of success doing that.
More than 2,500 kids participate in 4-H shooting sports in Montana, including 15-year-old Brianna Barr.
Well, the first time I remember shooting a gun, it was a .22, a little Davy Cricket, and I didn't know anything about it. I was pretty young, so I actually wasn't very safe with it. This project has helped me learn how to be more safe with guns, and nothing's ever happened, so, you know, praise God. I really appreciate how Todd is so, he makes sure to teach us about safety, and hunter's education too, that helps.
Gun safety is my #1 priority. I cannot stress that enough. I have friends I don't shoot with because I don't think they're doing, you know, stuff that I'd like to have inside of my own guns. Almost everybody I know owns a gun, and everybody I shoot with obviously owns several. It's just kind of a way of life, I think.
Montana's minimum age for owning a long gun is 14 years old. Kessner says teaching gun safety is of the utmost importance.
I've got my own kids at my home, and none of these kids would ever want to see get hurt. And so gun safety is really the first thing that we teach in the 4-H program, and continue to teach even with the adult leaders and the kids throughout the 4-H program.
The project was started in Montana, but now Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Oregon all have their own heritage shooting projects.
You start out by loading every gun with 5 rounds, and then we bring them all to the table, keeping them in a safe direction the whole time. And then you get your station all set up for you. You put your shells out for your shotgun and everything. And then the guy behind you, he'll have a timer for you.
Stand by.
Shoot your pistols first, and then you'll go to your lever action rifle and you'll shoot all of that, and then you'll go to a shotgun and you have to knock down 2 targets out there, and that's about it. Then just be safe after you're done with that and load them, or unload them, I mean.
To see the excitement when they break their first clay target or they hit their first bullseye, the amount of character building and discipline and pride that young shooters can learn from this is incredible.
Peter Antonoli has been around guns since before he could walk.
First time I ever went hunting with my family was I was only 6 months old, and my mom put me on her back when they went elk hunting. So that was, and I've been around it all my life, and it's been part of my family for a long time.
When I was a kid, people would say, I don't care if I get anything or not, I just like to see the young people have a good time. And I always thought, well, I always care if I get something, And then you get to that age where, it's true. It's more fun to see somebody else enjoy their first experience than it is for you to go out and bring home some meat. You'd rather have them do it.
Side that edge in that 170, so go ahead and unload your pistols.
Having firearms in our home was standard practice, learning how to shoot them correctly, handling them safely. It's a family tradition.
I don't know for the rest of Montana, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty important to us because it's part of our heritage, so.
Firearms came west in force with fur trappers, traders, and settlers in the late 1800s. C. Sharp's Arms in Big Timber makes exact replicas of the rifles originally produced in the 19th century.
One of the many letters came from the buffalo hunters back to their families and referred to the Sharp's rifle as the boss gun. I mean, there was the boss wagon and the boss horse and the boss saddle, but it just meant it was the best.
These guns were indeed boss guns. They were faster and easier to load than the conventional muzzleloaders of the time.
We are looked at as probably the top of the heap as far as people who make these type of rifles. And that gives a fella great satisfaction.
Bentley Spang lives on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation outside Billings, Montana.
They came from another culture, these guns, but we took them in and made them a part of our experience in such a way that, it's like we made them almost, So.
The Indians cherished the Sharp's rifle. They really thought it was a great treasure, and they really went out of their way and sacrificed lives to get them.
During the late 19th century, Northern Cheyenne Indians were taken captive and relocated to Fort Robinson in Nebraska. They were ordered to surrender their weapons, but the tribe found a way to keep their gun parts with them.
So they took apart all their guns, and they took the pieces of the guns and they hung them on the children, as earrings and necklaces, and the ladies in the tribe wore them like jewelry to disguise them. And then they, when it came time to surrender, they only handed over a couple guns, and so they had all these parts hidden on the rest of the people. And so when they got to where they were, locked up in the soldiers' barracks, they were able to reassemble those guns and hide them under the floorboards to prepare for the next step, which was the breakout several months later.
Guns altered Native American culture, making them better hunters and deadlier warriors.
We treated them with a lot of respect. They were almost, like one of your appendages in a way, your third arm or something, So we were really protective of our guns and very respectful of them. There were different times where knowing your gun was really, important and the key to survival.
When Schofstall began recreating the Sharp's rifle in 1978, he developed a manufacturing process that duplicated the quality of the original.
I have been a collector of these arms since I was in school, in college. And I know what they were, and I knew how they were appreciated back then. The Sharp's rifle was probably, back in the post-Civil War period, one of the most expensive rifles a hunter could buy during that era because of the quality of the product. Everything that we manufacture, we test fire. And that is not only from a safety standpoint, but it is also to prove to ourselves that if there's something that isn't quite right, it goes back upstairs and gets tuned up.
Gun laws haven't changed much since the early days of the C-Sharps rifle. Lyle Woosley is a fifth-generation Montanan and rancher.
Gun culture in Montana, I think that's why a lot of people come here to live, is because of the gun culture we have here. I don't know, growing up with it and whatnot, you don't really think about what we do have here. Guns have been part of my life as long as I can remember. On the mountain up here, when Pew comes home late at night and when some hits a cow and breaks her leg or whatnot, it would be a real pain to have to come get the vet to come put the cow down and all that. It saves the livestock a lot of pain when you do have to put them down and whatnot. Tyler's married to the youngest daughter, and the oldest daughter lives about 2 miles down the creek here.
It's been probably 4 years I've been with my father-in-law, so I've been in ranching all my life. Grew up with it, so started out with my family and everything. So as far as my age, ranching's a lifestyle, and I hope to stick with it.
Tyler Venice sees Montana's gun culture as a necessary way of life.
In the fall, riding and stuff, gathering cows, put a rifle on a horse just to take with us, just for protection and other things. So it all goes apart with the ranching. It's the way it's been in our lifestyle. It's what I learned and was taught and was part of my family, and I hope to pass it on to my family and my daughter. And it was a way to provide for our families and a way to eat and just protection. And like Lyle had stated, we're a long ways from a lot of things out here, and have had instances where the cops have been chasing people and looking for people, and we have been aware that they aren't available to get out here, and we've had people running around and things like that. So it's our comfort in itself. So I mean, guns need to be respected, and they're very dangerous. And like I say, teaching my young daughter to start her out with that guns kill, and not necessarily that the guns are the bad tool. It's the people that have it in their hands is that's usually the tool.
It's very important to be able to carry a gun for lots of reasons. Security. Way out here, we're a long way from law enforcement, so it falls upon us.
Ranchers in very rural communities like Montana has a lot of, they handle things on their own, unless it's a major deal, and that very seldom happens in communities where everybody knows each other, everybody's familiar with each other, they have friendships, they work together all the time. A lot of their survival is dependent upon their ability to work together as a small group.
Sheriff's Captain Brad Giffen says there are benefits to Montana's gun culture in the cities as well.
The reason we don't have huge amounts of violent crimes and gangs and things like that is because we are a culture that is very well armed, and everybody knows that. I feel quite a bit safer living in Montana and knowing that the majority of my neighbors have the ability to not only defend themselves but defend me. I'm perfectly okay with it.
A 2013 study by the Pew Research Center shows a 49% drop in gun violence in America since 1993.
Hold that thought. He was doing 85, so that one's a ticket. You have a very large independent streak in the people of Montana. They believe that there are fundamental rights that they are going to exercise, and one of those rights ties into the Constitution, which is the Second Amendment. That's a big topic of discussion in a lot of circles right now. They just automatically, they honestly, they believe in the Second Amendment, they believe what it says, and that it means what it says, and therefore they don't want to see any either real or perceived infringement on that right.
My job is to protect everyone's constitutional rights. You know, there's a Bill of Rights in the United States Constitution, and there's personal rights in Montana's state constitution.
There's a big difference between the U.S. and Montana constitutions. The Montana Constitution, unlike the Second Amendment, speaks of the right of any person to bear arms and sets out the purpose of self-defense.
There's maybe a higher level of awareness with a lot of people in Montana. They have a very, let me do my thing kind of philosophy with life. And as long as I'm not hurting anybody, don't mess with me. And, and I can understand that, and I can agree with that.
Those officers would probably agree with Jerry Lincoln's decision to buy a handgun.
I actually had an incident with somebody trying to enter my home, and I was alone with 2 small kids, and I guess it was something that shook me up a lot, and realizing that I didn't have anything to protect myself, and so I made a decision to go buy a 9mm at that time.
An incident on the job sent Realtor Brittany Hertz in search of a weapon.
It was my first time showing property, and I had just gotten licensed, and I was showing a property to a middle-aged man, and he was the only one who showed up for the showing. So I was a little bit uncomfortable because I was a young girl, and this man was giving off some very uncomfortable vibes. And so when we went into the home, I was told always turn the deadbolt so that the door can't slam behind you, and leave it open.
I carry a gun usually, for the most part, and a lot of that has to do with, a lot of, the wolves that have moved into this area, coyotes. I have a small dog that, we actually had an incident with a coyote chasing him, which, and then, they're, the never-ending fear of the evil 2-legged creature out there that you just never know where you're going to encounter them.
I pretended to have a call, and I told him I had an emergency back at the office, I need to go, and he followed me very awkwardly out the door, but I was able to get away. But that is one particular situation where it would have been nice to just have that concealed weapon just in case my luck was not as great as it was that day.
33,000 Montanans have concealed carry permits. The application asks for a Social Security number, employment history, character references, and a reason for wanting a permit. The county sheriff verifies every piece of that information.
The idea of ever having to use it is horrifying, absolutely. But knowing that if I were pushed up against that wall, that I do have the ability to protect myself is very important.
You've shot a lot bigger guns than that.
At the time, I was just a very busy girl going to college. My schedule was jam-packed, and I wasn't really thinking about how to protect myself, even though that should have been the avenue that my mind was leading me to.
The idea that if there were an intruder, be it human or some other 4-legged creature, that I could protect myself. There's so many people that are raised with the idea that, to protect yourself, you call the cops. Well, our police department's in Superior, which is 30-some miles. You don't call somebody else to protect yourself. You protect yourself from within.
Open it with this finger.
Over the years, I feel like I have become more familiar with the use of a gun, the proper use of a gun, and the sole purpose of the gun, which to me is self-defense.
We pride ourselves in our independence. And so the idea of somebody taking away a right, whether you're a huge gun owner or really into it, I think that sparks a lot of emotion in almost everybody. The idea that, I may not even have a gun, but the idea that somebody can come in and take it away from me just kind of goes against what Montana is.
Overall, I feel that everyone could be pro-gun and live in a happy and safe and positive environment, knowing that guns are perfectly legal to purchase anywhere without a background check or registration or any sort of enforcement that enables us from gaining a gun without having to go through hoops. And
I feel that it could be that way if more people become educated. The gun is a very powerful tool, and it does pose a threat to a lot of people if it's not handled properly.
Using Census Bureau statistics, gunpolicy.org calculates there are 101 guns for every 100 people in the United States. Dick Sonju's company, SI Defense, makes some of those weapons.
The manufacturers of the gun companies that are presently here in the state of Montana and the ones that are coming is a big impact to our job market. They're creating jobs. Every gun manufacturer I know in the state of Montana is hiring people. We are operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we have been for about the last 3 to 4 months.
SI Defense has outgrown its current Kalispell location, and expansion plans are in the works.
You know, we looked long and hard at this expansion, and we look at the forecast that's down the road. With our innovations that we're doing in the gun world, we are very, very excited about this addition.
Sonju attributes much of his success to the business climate here in Montana.
We're a gun-friendly state. Our population here in Montana, they know what guns are all about, and it's a friendly place to manufacture and to enjoy the guns.
According to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, Montana employs more than 1,600 people in gun manufacturing, with an estimated annual economic impact of $187 million statewide and $13 billion nationally.
It's a rapidly growing business in the state of Montana. Frankly, I don't see it's going to stop anytime soon.
Business is booming at Frontier Arms in Kalispell.
Because all this legislation that has come down the road here, or proposed, people that have never thought about owning a semi-automatic, black rifle, people that haven't even bought guns in 20 years are coming in and buying them.
And Hansen says that, although thorough, the buying process can be very quick.
You want to see one? I mean, you can walk in and out of here in 5 minutes with a gun. What we do is we do a FBI background check on them. It takes about 5 minutes to do the paperwork.
An FBI background check asks for the buyer's full name, address, date and place of birth, height, weight, and gender. A social security number is optional. Other questions involve criminal record, mental illness, military record, and citizenship status.
Yeah, it's not a tough process.
Frontier sells semi-automatic weapons. Weapons some people believe have no place in the hands of ordinary citizens. But Hansen wants people to understand the misconceptions surrounding these guns.
The media is always calling these rifles over here, assault rifles. They are not assault rifles. These guns here that everybody's buying, they're just semi-automatics. They are not assault rifles.
Assault rifles are defined as rapid-fire, magazine-fed automatic weapons specifically designed for military use. The AR is a semi-automatic weapon which fires one round with each trigger pull.
Hit! People here don't look at them as like evil. It's a part of our life. If we don't have our guns, we don't have our freedom. Montana, it's a way of life, it's an attitude. And I didn't move here trying to, like a lot of people from out of state, they want to get out of their home state because they hate it. Then they move here and then they try to make Montana like the place they just left. So I didn't do that. I love the attitude here. I fit right in with the people. It was like, this is home, even though I didn't grow up here.
Hey Scott, how are you? Good, how are you?
I hope that the state of Montana and our people will encourage other manufacturers to come to Montana. We are clearly becoming a mecca of the gun world, and I strongly believe it's going to grow and would be a very positive thing for the state of Montana and our local communities.
This boom has drawn in everyday Montanans with little to no gun experience as well.
I never imagined myself in where I'm at, and working in a gun manufacturing, but I absolutely love my job.
Lisa Caffrey gave up nursing school to start working at SI in late 2012 and was surprised to learn who buys these guns.
Good afternoon, SI Defense, Lisa. Just regular people call every day and order them. I have some doctors. I have lawyers who buy them from me. Regular people who, just want to be able to build their own guns. I think that's the other thing with Montana is the culture. I think a lot of families go out and shoot together. That's huge. It's a recreation for them, just like people go boating or camping and they shoot guns together too. And I'm also excited about educating other people about that they shouldn't be scared of them, that it really is a personal responsibility, and it's a state of mind. It really is. I think it's just as important to know how to handle yourself around the gun if you're not sure. I think that's just as important as anything. It's like getting into a car and knowing how to drive.
Both Sanju and Capri know there's debate over the type of weapons made by SI Defense.
The majority of the people, that are buying guns are responsible people. The stigma comes from one individual that upsets the apple cart, so to speak.
That we're continually in fear because one person decides to, shoot a school, or shoot somebody. It's like that gets focused on more than the actual person who's done it, and I think that's sad.
Montana has more than its share of gun violence. According to the Centers for Disease Control, Montana ranks third in the nation in per capita gun deaths. The CDC also reports 73,000 gun injuries in the U.S. in 2010. Jeremiah Roby hiked 7 miles into Chapin Lake near Darby in 2012. His friend brought a .357 snub-nose revolver for protection against bears and mountain lions. Roby was reloading the gun before the hike out.
It went off. Being a revolver, there's no safety or anything on the gun, so it went off and shot down into my leg and out the bottom of my heel. The pain was so severe that there's nothing else I've ever experienced that severe. It didn't hurt right away. When it first went through, it was just numb. It just felt like a hole. It didn't even feel like that. I just didn't even know. I saw the blood shooting out, and I had him take off my shoe, and then it took about 2 minutes for the pain to really start settling in, and excruciating pain while I was waiting for the helicopter to come. So I had conversations with them. I don't think I was quite all with it because they had me pretty drugged up by then. At one point I almost threw up because I had the painkillers in me, and so they put some more drugs in me. So I was really enjoying the whole helicopter ride. By then I was just excited that it had come and saved me, because I was expecting to have to wait for search and rescue to come get me, because they weren't sure if they could land the helicopter where we were.
Dr. Aaron Feist works as an emergency room doctor at Community Medical Center in Missoula. He says gun injuries can be fatal, require immediate life-saving surgery, or be relatively simple to treat.
It can be horrific depending on where the injury occurs, but it's not difficult in the fact that if it goes in and comes out, doesn't hit anything big or major in the middle, then it just almost becomes wound care.
Dr. Feist says in his experience, the number of gun injuries in Montana is relatively low.
The injuries that I've seen in Missoula, the 3 that I've seen were an accidental gunshot wound to the leg, and then the other 2 have been self-inflicted as a suicide.
Montana historically ranks in the top 5 in the nation in per capita suicides. 2/3 of those suicides are committed with a gun.
You'd expect, I think, just thinking about it from a common sense standpoint, that more guns, there's going to be more injuries, but I haven't seen that.
Well, when I went into the emergency room, I had to wait a while before I got a report from the doctor, but when they came in, they didn't look too excited, and they said that it looked pretty bad. They thought they would have to do reconstructive surgery on my heel, and that it would be several months before I could even walk or even put any weight on it. So I was pretty disappointed when they said that. I was pretty scared that I would never be able to walk again, but all they did was do some short surgery to clean it, and within 3 months I could already walk, and they didn't even think I could put weight on it by then, so it turned out a lot better than they expected.
Roby is physically healing from his accidental shooting, but mentally he hasn't been left unscathed.
I have had some trauma. The first time I noticed was actually at a Grizz football game when I was watching in the stands, and the Grizz made a touchdown, and they always have that big cannon that goes off, and I didn't realize it was coming because it had been a while since I'd been to a Grizz football game, and the cannon went off. Pain just started shooting through my foot instantly, and every time they made a touchdown after that, it did the exact same thing, and pretty soon I got to realize that they were about to shoot it off, so I'd plug my ears. But yeah, it was very interesting, and if anyone makes a loud bang next to me, it typically sends pain down my leg, which is really odd. It's never happened before, but I've learned to be thankful for things that I wasn't thankful for before, like being able to walk on 2 feet and all that. So it's been a big learning experience. And when I go hike, I wouldn't carry a stub-nose revolver for sure, but I would definitely still carry a gun going backpacking or hiking.
I think the most important thing is to always treat every gun as if it were loaded, because you don't want a round in the gun and accidentally point it at someone and your safety fails and you can shoot someone that way.
Young Montanans are learning gun safety to lessen their chances of an accident.
And that wouldn't be good.
11-year-old Lucas Harris is looking forward to his first hunting season. His dad has made safety a priority.
I spend more time discussing potential incidents or history of things that have happened with guns, so that my child builds a respect for that gun and understands that, yes, this is fun, but it's not a toy. By the time he was 4 and a half, he knew that even with his plastic guns, you don't point them at people.
Harris enrolled his son in a hunter safety course to hone the skills they had practiced.
The most important things that the instructors taught us was muzzle control. You want to be safe around all other hunters, and they really enforced that.
Number 1 rule, always keep your muzzle pointed in a safe direction.
I remember when I was a young boy, hunter's education was sort of a platform for me to say, hey, I have learned some skills that I've adopted on my own, and somebody's recognized those skills.
Students learn survival skills, hunting ethics, and gun safety.
I liked dipping my hands in the water. They had to stay in there for 60 seconds. Then we had to take them out and try to light a candle within 15 seconds.
Safety is number 1 in the way we teach the program. And I can't stress that enough to the students in the class, how critical safety is. Safety and responsibility are number 1.
Now that Lucas is finished with the program, his dad is excited to finally be able to hunt with him.
Usually the turkeys cross. They walk down the gully here and they walk up this way. And that's pretty cool that I have turkeys on my own property.
Ever since I saw the ultrasound, I thought, wow, I'm going to have a little hunting partner, and I've been waiting ever since.
In 2010, more than 192,000 Montanans purchased hunting licenses. That's 19.2% of the population of the state.
The youth today is our future for tomorrow, and we need them to continue the hunting heritage.
If there was no hunting, there just wouldn't be that much. No hunting and fishing, there's not much to do other than playing soccer and basketball and football.
What comes with a hunting lifestyle and raising children in a quote-unquote gun culture is that you introduce kids to guns at a very young age. You can't wait to share the opportunity with your child on how to shoot a gun and how great it feels to knock over a can or have 5 shots in a bullseye. It's quite an accomplishment for a young person.
It's the family bond that is part of our hunting heritage. It's a chance to get out to experience nature. You know, we live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. You know, people come from all over the world to hunt here.
Guns are embedded in Big Sky Country, a way of life for some, a cause for concern for others. No matter the story, no matter the person, it's all part of Montana's gun culture.
This University of Montana Radio Television Department production was made possible with support from the Greater Montana Foundation, encouraging communications on issues, trends, and values of importance to Montanans, and by the University of Montana.